Opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not WSTU. WSTU does not endorse any products mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU.
The Treasure Coast longest-running local talk radio show is on the air. The Treasure Coast Forum. Get interested, get educated, get involved, and give us a call with your opinions at 220-9788. And here's your host of the Treasure Coast Forum.
Hello, happy Thursday. Welcome to the Treasure Coast Forum. I'm your host today, Noyana Pierre-Lewis, but you can call me No-No. And I'm here with...
Oh, you're here with John.
And...
Yeah, Frank.
And today we have two special guests that will make their introduction later on. Yeah. But for right now...
It's a surprise.
It is a surprise, and it's a very good surprise.
Yes.
But we're going to hand things over to John, who has some interesting news for us today. Before we get into the 3-page essay filled with questions that I have for us today.
Good introduction. Anyways, our viewers know that me and Mr. Frank love to kind of ramble about space in the beginning of our episodes.
Right, we're both space cadets.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So first off, I guess we should start off with one of the more bigger news. It was about Jeff Bezos and his new launch, which was aboard the New Shepard rocket from Blue Origin, I believe the company was.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I believe it had the oldest and youngest person ever to go to space too, right?
Yes. Yeah, he said. And what day did he do it? He did it on the same day that man landed on the moon. So exactly 50 years later. So pretty cool.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
And it was...
Yeah, so he deliberately picked that date because it would be a date in history that would be synonymous with another pivotal moment in history. It was kind of an interesting pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw the video a little bit as we were going over. It's pretty interesting. It was in like a kind of like a capsule, space rocket.
It's a capsule that is got lots of windows in it. It's designed to give the occupants a good view. And there's a video you can if you haven't seen it already, you can watch it. You can watch them tumbling around inside the capsule.
And they were up there for 10 minutes.
Yeah, 4 minutes of full weightlessness. Yes.
Still.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay, it's still pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, after that, I was kind of browsing on the internet. I didn't know how I missed that first article at first. Mr. Frank reminded me later, actually. I found a separate one, actually. It was about astronomers spying the first moon, and it was like moon forming, and it was on a exoplanet. I believe it was called PDS 70C.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of really exciting or interesting names for it now. No.
Yeah, not yet.
No.
It's similar to Jupiter, and it's 400 light years away from Earth, actually. It's pretty damn far.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. Some neat stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And actually, in the process of it right now, the satellites, which are the moons, are actually forming. So it's a good chance for scientists to observe how moons and planets are actually being formed. Just, it's insane.
Right. And then Hubble, did you find out anything on Hubble? No.
Oh my God.
So
how do you know these?
Well, because it's what I do.
Take it away.
Hubble was repaired, at least temporarily, and it's back live again. So it was down for almost a month. And so they figured out what the issue was, and they kind of rerouted some of the it was the power system and the CPU. And so it wasn't getting the proper allocation of power. So it just did a safety shutdown, and they kind of rerouted the power through a backup CPU, and voila. Back in business.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I did not hear about that.
Space
Where did you
is
find
moving
these?
forward.
Tell us your sources.
Tell us your sources.
Okay.
All right. Is that all from you, John?
I have one more, which is a
Take
little
it
bit interesting.
away.
It was the Solomon Islands. Mr. Frank wanted me to do a little bit of segment. I believe No even sent me some videos and stuff over.
It was 3 videos.
It was 3 videos.
3
indeed.
videos.
Anyways, going into it, it was about Daniel Sudanai.
Close enough.
Sudanai. I cannot pronounce that last name. Anyways, he's the, I believe, leader of, he's
one of the main islands.
He's one of the main islands. It's Molotai.
Molotai, I think.
Molotai, yes,
Yeah.
there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, we were talking about China at the time, and it was kind of like China's involvement in other areas, give or take. And Mr. Frank brought up Solomon Islands, and he was like, you'll find this pretty interesting. And it was
True? Yes or
Mhm.
no? Yes.
it was fairly interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about this. I looked on like major news sources such as like BBC, CNN. I couldn't find it.
Hmm.
It was pretty interesting. It was about a case of the man. He had a case of brain cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and it was more involving China on this time. There's been rumors
So the Solomon Islands have recognized Taiwan.
they do recognize Taiwan.
And so
Switched.
they quietly switched,
Mhm.
though the residents of the Solomon Islands weren't told
Mhm.
that politically they switched from recognizing Taiwan to recognizing China instead.
And at the same time, one of the islands was leased out to China, and
Yeah,
the
isn't that
residents didn't
special?
know.
Wasn't that special?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyways, we were going over this, and it was quite a big debacle because he supposedly proclaimed that China offered him like money, just kind of endorsed China, and they
Right.
would give him treatment. They send him over to China, help his family out because his financial situation wasn't doing too well, and the money was quite absurd for him to go to Australia, I believe
Mhm.
it was.
Mm-hmm.
So Taiwan stepped in as a separate entity
Mm-hmm.
and offered him like, come to Taiwan and we will help you out as just for
Humanitarian.
Mhm,
Mhm,
for
mhm,
humanitarian aid.
mhm.
And so he went over to Taiwan, and then this is a bit more separate, but it's interesting because some of them, there's been like accounts they're going to accuse him for treason, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
interesting situation seeing how like China and their own government play into these.
Right. Yeah. Kind of leveraging their will on other countries.
Mm.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyways, it's just I thought it was
Yeah.
it's instructive to kind of see what's going on in the region.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's fairly interesting.
but I'm
No,
going
no.
to take the reins now.
Okay.
Mhm.
All
So
right.
before we get into the meats and potatoes of what we're going to be discussing today, I'm going to introduce my special guest stars with one question, and this stems off of one of our radio show episodes, actually, where everybody knows I always talk about, oh, when I grow up, I'm going to be a criminal defense attorney. I'm going to defend all of the criminals, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And I think during one episode, I don't know if you guys remembered, but like 3 callers came in telling me I shouldn't be a lawyer because lawyers are horrible. And I was like, what? And one of them even quoted Shakespeare and one of his most controversial quotes, and that being, the first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
as an uprising third-year law student and an attorney for real, what is your rebuttal to lawyers being terrible, kill all the lawyers, and lawyers being terrible in general? Like, what is your rebuttal, especially since this is your life work, this is the path both of you have taken? And please do introduce your names, and give some background on who you are.
Well, thank you very much, Noyana. Pleasure to be here with you this evening. And it's been a great delight to have you in the office doing the summer internship.
Thank you.
I've been very impressed with your brilliance, very impressed with your hard work and diligence. And here you are hosting a radio show as well. So thank you for inviting me over. So Shakespeare was an interesting fellow, of course. But let me just tell you my perspective about lawyers or attorneys and the law in general. There's a little bit of everybody represented within the legal profession, folks from all walks of life, just like in any other profession. We have men of the cloth, we have school teachers, we have policemen, and any career field that one might enter into is going to have folks who come from different backgrounds, folks with different perspectives. And sadly, as it isn't true in most any other profession that one might enter into, the legal profession has some folks who may not be the best people morally. Perhaps they're difficult people, because after all, lawyers do argue quite a bit, especially if they're litigators. I am primarily a criminal litigator. And so there's a lot of adversarial type of engagements that attorneys come across. And so folks that are in one of these situations where the process is adversarial, of course, they may come away with the opinion that a lawyer is no good What's a good start? I heard somewhere, was lawyers at the bottom of the sea.
Interesting.
But it's kind of a spinoff of Shakespeare. But the bottom line simply is that most lawyers that I practice with, most lawyers that I know are great people. They're people that you can look up to, people with morals, people with a good sense of ethics. And speaking of a good sense of ethics, it's also been my pleasure this summer to have a second-year law student in the firm by the name of Stephen Sterling, who's here with us this afternoon. And I want to tell you that if you haven't met Stephen Sterling, come to the law offices of Joshua Deckard, now known as Deckard, Kofsky, and Clark, and meet Stephen Sterling if you want to meet a true gentleman that's about to embark upon a career in the legal profession. You won't find a better man with better sense of ethics and morals. And then those that don't know you, I think your listeners may very well have a good idea of who you are and what you're all about. You are thinking of a career in the legal profession as well. And you and Stephen both exemplify the type of lawyers I think that we would want in our profession. So I encourage you to stay on the path that you're on, stay true to your upbringing, stay true to your beliefs, and both of you will make fantastic lawyers.
Powerful. Thank you. And Stephen, what's the comeback? Give it to us.
Well, to add on to the great, I call him the GOAT, Mr. Joshua Deckard, which means the greatest of all time. If you guys don't know, Mr. Deckard is a legend in his own right. He actually has a reputation among the prosecutors that he will work the case and he will defend each client as if it was his own family, his own loved one, and make sure that justice is applied, to make sure that his clients have given every right that is given through the Constitution in regards with how their rights are being protected and the process or the due process of law. So I appreciate learning from a GOAT like himself. In my case, in regards with they're bad lawyers. I think there's bad teachers, they're bad cooks, they're bad officers, they're bad everything.
Bad doctors. Sorry,
bad doctors.
Just had to include that, but continue.
Exactly. So I think there's good and bad to all. And as one of my favorite superhero movies was Spider-Man.
Yes, sir.
With much power
comes great responsibility.
Right?
Let's go.
So I think as for me as a student, I'm learning a theory. And just having the opportunity to put it into practice throughout this summer and going into my career, I promise that I will continue to strive to be not only an ethical lawyer, but as well as an ethical man of God that strives to protect his clients, strives to make sure that the law is upheld, and make sure that everything that I can do in my power will be in the benefit of the client and for the community as a whole.
Wow. Powerful. Mm-hmm. Like I said, powerful. But so given this world of law, respect is a huge thing, obviously, right? But I don't know, somehow I'm going to say today's special word is honor. And my next question is there such a thing in today's society where honor is involved? And, in school, they often teach us like, oh, respect your teachers, respect your friends, respect your peers, respect anyone you come across. But what about honor? And before we actually tackle that one question, is respect and honor the same thing? Are they the same thing? Or are they similar but have a line that's different? Anything of that sort? Any answer?
Well, I would just jump in here and let you know a few of my thoughts. What's the difference between respect and honor? I think if we honor someone, we show them respect and deference. If we honor someone, we treat them with kindness. If we honor someone, we are careful with the words that we choose. We're careful not to hurt one. We're careful to respect that person. For example, whether I wanted to or not, I was taught to honor and obey my parents, especially my father. And that upbringing has served me well during my lifetime. And how did I honor my father? I honored my father primarily by bidding his wishes. And if there were things that he wanted me to do, I made sure I did them. If there were things or activities that he wanted me to refrain from, I did. And those were good life lessons because those carried over into my law enforcement profession, which I was in for 25 years. And then later on into the legal profession, which has now spanned almost 2 decades. We honor our loved ones. We honor the elderly. And how do we honor them? By acts of kindness and respecting their wishes. So I believe the two terms are different, but they somehow fit together very nicely.
It's like faith and hope, right?
I agree.
I talked about that last week.
Last week, indeed.
Yeah, I like how I tied that together. But of course, the biggest thing is that in today's society, something happened yesterday, and I'll get into it. I feel as if the essence of childhood is not being honored. And I'm going to ask you a question that's going to connect everything together. So when you listen to a piece of music, I know, Mr. Deckard, you love music and the guitar and whatnot. So
Indeed, I do.
This is your question for real right here. But when you listen to a piece of music, specifically a sadder and more mellow melody, where does your mind go? To the past, the present, or a possible future?
Well, you just hit a topic that's close and dear to my heart. And I don't know why it is, but I've always enjoyed the tearjerkers, as well as upbeat tempos as well. I like all types of music. But I've always had a special fondness for some of the sadder melodies. I find myself, if I pick up a guitar, I'm going to put together a chord progression that may, for a lot of folks, have a sad feeling to it. But somehow it brings me comfort. It quiets my mind. It helps me focus on things that I need to focus upon. But the sad music, if you're asking me, am I thinking about things in the past, sad things in the past? I don't think so. No, I don't think I'm going back into the past when I listen to these sadder type melodies or music. And I'm sorry to disappoint you if you were hoping I would go there.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, it's not like I wrote my whole entire script on everybody saying that they thought about the past, but it's okay. Go ahead. But it's good. It's good. Difference is good. That's good. Continue.
I don't know that I think specifically about any moment when I'm listening to music that may have sad overtones. I'm just enjoying being in the moment.
So you basically your mind goes to the present.
It does, I would say. Yes.
Okay, interesting. What an interesting turn of events. But why? Could you explain why really quickly?
I don't know, and I don't understand. For example, some of the sadder music is always going to have the steel guitar playing in it as well. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a melody played by the steel guitar, and the steel guitar is going to come in at certain points during this song or the melody a little stronger and fade out. I think maybe it's just that I love the steel guitar, and steel guitar tends to be used quite a bit in more of the sadder melodies.
Interesting. So I'm just going to read this a little bit, and you can, of course, I can always be wrong, but I'd like to say that maybe you have a balanced, how do I say, perspective when it comes to the memories you have. So like the past is in the past, and the future is whatever the future may be. Therefore, which is why you are so able to be grounded in the present, especially when something as emotional and as moving as music comes into play, right? So this is just a small exercise. John, really quickly, do you think about the future, the past, the present?
I'd say sometimes it depends on the music. Mostly it's present or future. Like for me personally, this sounds a little bit weird. Okay. When I think about sad music, Mr. Deckard mentioned the guitar. So I think about things like that, how each one of those instruments, it might be like the chimes or something. It sounds sad, but I sometimes hold myself like, why does it sound sad? And I'm like, oh, it's like, and then I'm like, oh, well, I'm going hope now. Does that make sense? It's like, it's sad. Yeah. And it resonates with me. If it's the present, I'll have something like maybe I don't like or something. I'll like, okay, let's change it. And just whoop, and just go.
Okay. Steven, how about you? Where does your mind go?
I agree with John. It depends. It depends in regards with my personal mood at that particular time when I'm listening to the song. Mr. Deckard mentions the guitar as well as John did. For me, it's the organ or the piano.
Mm.
You know, the keys that
Amen.
right that can
I love the organ.
right, and it just brings you down to earth. You know, so I love the sound of that instrument.
All right, and Mr. Frank.
I grew up playing the accordion, right?
Nice.
Italian kids, that's what
Okay.
you do, right?
All right.
But yeah, so but I like listening to oldies, which to me is like contemporary music, right?
Focus.
So, right. Yeah. So yeah, so I don't know. That's a happy experience for me. And
right.
yeah.
But your mind never like goes to the past of when you were younger, your
No,
childhood.
No, but I like
How
my folks used to
interesting.
like to listen to the 40s music, right?
Mhm.
Because that was the era they grew up in. And so I enjoy that music, and I just think of my folks. I have happy thoughts that way. And I love listening to 40s stuff too.
Yeah, when I listen to Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong,
Yeah.
I go back to my past, to my childhood.
Yeah.
Aw.
My mother would normally play that song all throughout the house and when she's cooking and whatnot. So
Okay.
I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Cheek
yeah.
to cheek.
All right. Well,
There
thank
you
you
go.
all for participating
All
in
right.
this because what
You're like an
inspired this?
anthropologist. I love
A
this.
little bit. I
Yeah.
love dissecting little things. But what inspired me to kind of bring this question to the segment today was that yesterday I was in the car and I was driving back home from West Palm Beach, and I listen to sad music. That's all I ever listen to. But this particular song was from some artist and whatnot, but it had been like remixed and slowed, and it was very soothing and mellow.
Right.
And the repeating line of it is old enough to understand. So I was like, every time I listen to this song, I always envision myself in the future. Like I'm at college, and then
Kind of
everything that I went through.
retrospective stuff. Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
everything I went through in high school, it's like it starts to click. And then that's when it becomes I'm old enough to understand.
Ah.
And I often find that I'm always in the future when I listen to music. And so I played it for my dad in the car, and I was like, where does your mind go to? And he says, I go to the past. And I was like, And I was like, I'm never, ever thinking of the past. And if I am, it's always in a negative way. I'm always like, I wish I
could have, would have,
I
should
would
have.
have, yeah, exactly. And then I was like, I feel like I think too much for a kid of my age. And I feel like I ask all these questions all the time. And I'm always seeking for knowledge or something, which is good. But sometimes I'm very imbalanced with it. But
Okay.
it's always for a future that I wish to create. And so then I was like, man, like when I finally become old enough to understand, maybe I'll realize that I wasted my childhood thinking about the future rather than the present, which has been a reoccurring theme this summer, which is very sad. So then I realized, and I looked to my generation, and I was like, well, all the other kids who are on social media, who are doing all these things and are on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, they are also, I feel, not appreciating, or the essence of their own childhood is not being honored, especially with the adults that allow them to do these sorts of things.
Right.
And I have multiple examples. But I was just like, when they finally become old enough to understand, they'll probably realize, like, I never got to enjoy my childhood the way I should have. And an example of this is this girl. She was 13 years old. Her name is Danielle Cohn. She's known for dressing provocatively. Like, if I were to show you a picture, you'd be like, that is not a 13-year-old girl. That's a 21-year-old. But again, she at like 14 years old, allegedly, she had to have an abortion and things like that. Have to go under, like, it's traumatizing to see this girl have to be raised on social media. I've also seen YouTubers talk about how family vlogging channels, for example, I mean, they're recording the mother giving birth in the labor room. I think that's what she say, while the baby's popping out. That's not. And then from that day on, you constantly see the baby on camera as they grow up. Like personal development in a child's life is being broadcasted to millions of people for money. And I'm just like, this is not what a childhood is. And as my dad was telling me how, when the music was making him go to the past, he was thinking of being in the fields and riding bikes with his friends and, jumping into lakes and rivers and buying soda and flipping pennies and things like that. And I was like, I don't have that. My childhood was spent in books and school. But then these kids, their childhoods were recorded and broadcasted. Their most embarrassing moments. And how do you honor something that's taken away from you like that?
Well, I don't think you can. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a moment and talk about social media. But
Go for
before
it.
I do that, I want to encourage you to live both in the moment and plan for the future. So enjoy your youth, live in the moment, enjoy what you do, enjoy your friends, enjoy your studies, but also be thinking of the future, coming up with a plan and kind of having an idea of where you want to go. Social media. As a criminal defense attorney, I see many cases every year where one befalls trouble, they find trouble, they are arrested, and they come consult with me in my office, later hire me to represent them on charges that arose from their use of social media. So these social media platforms can be a benefit. They help society, but at the same time, they are also an evil. And they're evil in the respect that folks unwittingly find themselves breaking the law while they're on social media platforms. And it's there for the world to see, like you were just pointing out, and it's there literally forever. There will always be a record of whatever was posted somewhere. And so to think of someone's parents sharing the child's development through birth, right on up to whatever time, maybe right through high school or something like that. I suppose there may be a way that the story could be told in a flattering manner, but somehow maybe the innocence of childhood is taken away by the entire world, or at least the neighborhood and all the friends and family knowing every little detail that happens in that child's life.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But we're gonna come back to this topic with more questions, of course, as we go to break. So stay tuned, as Mr. Frank always says. See you on the flip side.
In case you didn't know, that's In the Mood.
In the Ooh,
Yes.
nice.
Glenn Miller.
Mr. Decker's having fun over
You
there.
bet.
All right. Well, to get back on track, we were talking about honoring the essence of childhood and how I feel as if that's being stripped away from the younger generations, from my generation, the Gen Zers. And Stephen had some comments to say, I think, along with John. So take it away, you guys.
Oh, no,
Alright.
you go first.
Yes. All right. So I think Mr. Decker left off of mentioning social media as one of the potential reasons why childhood innocence may be taken away. But also, I think just technological advances over the period of time. I think this COVID pandemic has been a reminder of the need of human interaction, right? Intimacy, the sense of a touch of a hands or a hug, a kiss on the forehead or on the cheek. I think
A handshake.
a handshake, right?
Right.
So
We don't do those anymore.
right.
Mm.
So I think that also, in a lot of ways, can prevent probably kids from going outside and interacting with others because of the technological advances and through media, through video games, so on and so forth.
And it's the boy in a bubble.
Right.
We all feel like that boy.
Right, because you can now interact. I'm thinking, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, the only way you can communicate with someone was either by a beeper or a big telephone, right? So now you can interact through FaceTime, and talk to multiple people at the same time. So back then, if you were forced into that human interaction versus now.
You also forgot pen pals, but continue, take it away.
Frank and I grew up with party lines.
Yeah.
Party lines.
Yes.
What is that?
So
where
your
everyone on your block used the same telephone
right.
number.
So the deal is your phone would ring like with a certain sequence, and that call was for you. Sometimes you pick up the phone to dial out, somebody else is on the party line, so you'd have to ask them politely, can I use the phone? I would like to make an outgoing call.
There's a story. I think there was a play about that, about a man who was trying to murder his wife, and she heard it. She heard it because
on the party line.
Yeah, and she heard them planning it out. That's crazy. I didn't know that was called a party line.
Sure, a shared line.
Oh, shared. Okay.
And we had to get permission to use the telephone. We didn't have a device in our hand that we could text someone or call our friends. We didn't have any messaging. We played outside. We didn't have PlayStation.
Yeah, and you couldn't delete the messages afterwards, so your parents don't see anything compromising.
Right.
We had much less worries. Today, I believe children and youth have many more worries than what Frank and I had in the 60s growing up.
Oh yeah, again. So the loss of honoring the innocence of childhood. And John, what did you have to say? Go for it.
Okay, so I guess I would go for okay. So my thoughts about technology, I think some of it depends on the child and some of it depends on the parent. For example, like for me, I wasn't actively involved with like social groups and stuff. So I would go on my own and find things to do, like I don't know, do badminton in the backyard, skateboard, soccer, play with the dog, everything basically. And I divulge myself in Harry Potter books, do everything. See classmates doing like crazy stuff like D&D.
Oh yeah,
God.
The IB kids are crazy about D&D, but that's a whole different
Things
story.
like that.
Yeah,
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
They do things like that, but I think some of it resolves on the parents, because if the parents like push like something like make the kid like a star chess player or something, the kid's going to do that. And then while they're like maybe learning a language, if they push that, then they're going to do that. I think technology, it does some good with that. Like you can change somebody's life by simply giving it. Like you guys were talking about getting like a hug or something, seeing your family over. I think even music, that is a heavy bringer. If you can just maybe open up like news broadcasting to like somewhere in like, I don't know, somewhere in Africa, it could change their entire perspective. Just getting that outside source, maybe like a new idea, a new tradition, what be it. I just think it just depends on how you use it and what everybody does with it.
Of course. So I'd like to end out with two more questions. The first one being, what would the world look like, since we're slowly getting to that process where my generation is growing up and the younger generation is going to have to take over eventually? And so what would the world look like with the generation that never got to honor their childhood or have the memories or the feeling of nostalgia when they think of being a kid? Or what would the world be if the transition from being a child to an adult was seamless? So like you've been an adult your whole life to the point where once you're 18 or 21 or 30, it's almost as if, okay, well,
The
I've
other
always
day
been
at the
this way.
office. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know, I just feel like we're slowly getting to a point where everybody's going to that transition, those feelings of nostalgia, the things that we used to enjoy and take for granted as children is slowly losing its light, slowly losing its power, and it's not being honored anymore. So what will the world look like if that happens?
Mealtime without their families.
And one of my favorite quotes is by former President Franklin D. Roosevelt. He says this. He says, "We may not be able to prepare the future for our children, but we can at least prepare our children for the future." Run with that.
That's powerful.
Right.
Absolutely powerful.
Wow. So that's all you can do now, so us as the older generation that's slowly coming of age, the only thing we can do for our children is just prepare them, tell them, like you tell me over and over again, enjoy the process.
Yes.
Take time.
How many times have I shared that?
Oh my
with
God,
you?
so
Yeah.
many times.
Right. Yeah.
So many times. I'm telling you, if our lives were a movie, that would be enjoy the process,
Yes.
starring me.
Yes.
I always imagine myself living in the future as if I was 60 or 70 years old, and I'm thinking about like what I would like to have written on my epitaph, right?
All right.
My gravestone. And one of the things I'm always learning to appreciate more than ever as I speak to Mr. Decker or my grandfather or my parents and so on and so forth is to, like you said, to appreciate the moment that we have today, but also to understand that life itself, it repeats itself in a lot of ways in everybody's lives. There's different challenges. You talked about, facing the Great Depression and what your father went through. We talked about what we just experienced with the COVID pandemic and so on. So these challenges are somewhat of the same stick, I would say. But however, do we change our character? Do we change how we approach it? In regards to, like you say, preparing our kids for the future and having meals with the kids, at night or once a week, and spending time with the kids. How often do we spend time at work versus at home?
See, my folks used to, at our dinner table, it was not only just dinner for the family, but it was also story time.
Right.
That's when we really connected with mom and dad. We knew how they met,
right,
what their romance was like, how they met, and so we were intimately connected, in such a special way that the kids today, they don't know how mom and dad met, if mom and dad are both in the same house for that matter, and so it's a whole different dynamic. And
you know what?
Yeah.
That right there is what inspires me to be an attorney.
Yeah.
Actually a criminal defense attorney.
Really?
Because there's many people that are currently behind bars, I should say, or in custody that can't post bond
right.
due to their financial needs, right?
Yeah.
Or their financial situation. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of single parent homes out there that I wish, like you said, I think that family, that
nurturing,
the system has been unfortunately diluted in many ways, through the laws that we have in place, through the system that we have in place. And I always argue that, hey, an unjust law is no law at all. So I want to make sure that I can become an advocate for that, to speak of what is really the justice that our founding fathers speak of. What is the merit behind the Constitution in regards with the God-given rights that we are born with in this country, and that we are able to celebrate each day or each year, right, on July 4th and Memorial Day, to thank the fathers and the former soldiers that that have unfortunately lost their lives in service for these God-given rights.
And I hate to cut you off. We'll come back to
Okay.
this because this is so good. So hold on to your thought, Mr. Deckard, because we have to go to break. Again, stay tuned because we're getting deeper into this because of course there's always more. There's always more. We're not even done.
And now,
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
again,
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto!
wrong hat.
I take a 7.5.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Welcome back. And in these last few minutes of the show, I'd like to hand things over to Mr. Deckard so that way he can have a finishing thought. Unless we have one caller. Okay,
Yeah,
here we go.
Go ahead, caller.
Hello, caller. How are you doing?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. Wait, is this what I think it
Elvis.
is? No, is this Mr. Bob?
Yeah.
Oh my
in
goodness.
Welcome
In
back.
my own defense, I'm the one that brought up that "Kill All the Lawyers" song by the Eagles.
Yes, it was you. I totally forgot. Man, where have you been? Up in the Keys?
No, I'm dealing with family issues and just enjoying listening to you guys. And in my own defense, I wasn't really talking about criminal defense lawyers. I was talking about all these lawyers we see on the mainstream media channels in West Palm Beach. Hey, call us. We'll get you millions of dollars for this and that and raise your insurance rates when we get big settlements and whatnot.
Right.
I respect criminal attorneys. And Mr. Decker's only one letter away from me from my last name. But no, you should. If you haven't listened to this song about the Get Rich Quick lawyers that we have to watch every time on TV, I see them. I change the channel. I go to the next mainstream channel, and I get another criminal offense attorney, or I get this or that. So.
We're on the same page,
no, I
Bob.
do respect criminal defense attorneys.
Well, I got to tell you that I have the same feelings as you do. Some of that advertising gets a bit too much, and I tend to change. Yes, I tend to change the channel as well, and so you will notice that you don't see my mug on television.
Yeah, and I respect you for that because you can make bigger money if you shift it to that. We have a lawyer in Stuart who's pretty famous, who I won't mention. and he makes a lot of money going around and extorting, I would say.
Interesting.
And but I'll leave it at that. But no, it just gets so tiring to watch everything you see on the mainstream media from Palm Beach or wherever you live.
Well, even the news
big
gets tiring too,
channels.
doesn't it, Bob?
Huh?
I said even the news gets tiring as well. It's another shooting or another sad story.
Yeah.
Everything's getting so. I don't know. This is we're talking about what's going on in Cuba, and we're voting for the same kind of government in this country, and it bothers me.
I wish the news shared happy stories, but apparently happy stories don't sell as well as conflict and sad.
That's right. In the news world, if it bleeds, it leads.
Listening to you, Mr. Decker, and being a criminal defense attorney is a whole different ball game. And if no one wants to go into that, I'm yes.
Yes, I love that. And of course, I only use your quote just so I can ask a question. That's it. I only used it a quote. That's all. It's no hard feelings. And honestly, yes, again, what Mr. Decker does is very respectful. In contrast to what most lawyers out here, what they decide to use their power and knowledge. Yeah.
Well, if you listen to that song by the Eagles, which is one of my favorite bands, it's called "From the Hell Freezes Over" concerts. Don Henley, who's the lead singer on that one, recently passed away. But if you listen to that, it's all about not defense attorneys. It's about the get rich people, and it's one of my favorite songs from the Eagles. And I liked all of them basically, but
great music.
In fact, some of the band had a conflict with it because a lot of them are liberals. And
man,
yeah, it was surprising me. And well, maybe they call it that's the Hell Freezes Over concert because Decker might know that they had issues, conflicts of political issues, some of them, and but no, I just wanted to call in and just say no. I defense attorneys, and I like defense attorneys. I could probably use both No and Mr. Decker in the future,
and Steve.
Yeah,
Steven.
Yeah, the IRS thinks, like I said, the IRS thinks my name is the Tea Party, so they
Tea
don't
Party.
I prefer my artists stay out of politics and stick to their craft.
I don't blame you, brother. I don't blame you. All right,
Mr.
guys,
Bob,
great show.
it is so good to hear from you. I'm sending blessings to your family. Okay.
Yeah, my family's been going through a lot of issues.
Yeah, we're praying for you.
A lot of medical issues, but everything seems to be going pretty well right now.
All right, we're stay in touch, okay?
Yeah, continued well wishes, absolutely. Yep.
All right, goodbye.
All right, guys.
Thanks Bob.
Yeah,
all right,
thank you.
bye-bye.
All right, well, do you even remember your thought, Mr. Deckard, or about honoring the essence of childhood?
I do recall the thought.
And okay, sure, go for it.
Listening to Mr. Stephen Sterling and Frank speak a little bit about their childhood and their thoughts, I would tell you this, that if the children today and the youth of today, if they had the parents and the background that Frank and I grew up with, where we had supper time or dinner around the dinner table with our parents and our siblings every night. It wasn't just once or twice a week, it was every night. And if more families would go back to the old days and do things the old way, less of our youth would need to see me and us in the law office.
Or feel the need to go onto social media and, flounder around, say slurs,
That's correct.
Cause drama, act like adults, and grow up. Of course, yeah. It all stems back to the house and what people intend to do with their time.
Values.
All right. Well, we're going to move on. We're going to try and get this on the roll. So my last section is honoring relationships. So earlier we talked about platonic relationships, but I'd like to get into romantic relationships.
Oh my God.
I know, we're going there. I'm pushing it. So how do you think our society views and honors romantic relationships?
Well, that's an interesting question.
And I know we just had a divorce case, and I sat in on another divorce case with my friend Kyle So just seeing things like that go down and how intense and how the emotions can be, like how has that come to be? Because I know in the past, at least in our American history, divorces were not common at all.
Well, let me tell you this. In fact, the Florida law is that all divorce lawyers use. And by the way, I'm not a divorce attorney.
Of course, yes, of course.
I prefer that folks remain married. I'm a supporter of marriage, but I will just tell you that the Florida Divorce Act, if you will, the Florida marriage laws are designed to keep marriage intact. That was the purpose of the law. It does permit folks who have irreconcilable differences or reasons to separate and divorce. It does provide for them to do that, but in the very beginning, the law was designed to protect marriage. And I think we need to get back to that.
Interesting.
Well said.
Yeah, perfect. I don't know. I just feel like, going up to college, what I often say, because like my friends, they're all in relationships and whatnot, and I only believe in two of those relationships that my friends are in. And what I often say when everybody's like, oh, how come you've never had a boyfriend before, this and that, and I will always say, what is the point of being with someone if you might have the chance of breaking up or separating or of things ending up with a divorce attorney screaming at each other in front of a judge and things ending horribly, the kids have like custody or all these problems. What is the point? What is the point of sacrificing all of that if it's not going to last?
It's life. We all want hope and promise of a bright tomorrow, a bright future. We all want to be happy. We all want to be in a meaningful relationship, because that, at the end of the day, or all day long, that's what makes us tick, our meaningful relationships. And so marriage or relationships, whether they're family relationships or a romantic relationship, they're very important.
Well, then how do you find that in a society that does not honor that?
Well, I would disagree with that thought.
Really?
Divorce is prevalent. Breakups are prevalent. But I know many folks are in long-term marriages.
And I would second that. I think
well, Stephen, you're in one.
Yes, so I would support that. From what so far, I've learned that marriage is based off a decision that I make each day. And that decision is to be committed to my spouse, to be committed to my family, and regardless of my emotional mood in that particular day or week or month, I have to remind myself I have to be committed to my wife and no one else. That's how I make it work.
That's right.
Okay.
No one wants to be lonely.
So, of course, but so I mean,
Well
but then
said.
really quickly, you don't feel as if Gen Z does not view relationships in the same way as I do? John, I don't know how you feel about it.
That's a new one on me. Did you say
know.
Generation Z?
I think I'm part of that generation. Am I not?
I feel like you're a millennial, but I don't know. I don't know any of those things.
Okay.
All I know is that
I lost
John and I
track.
are Gen Zers.
Right. But I have a couple of guys that are committed to their wives. So
That's good to hear.
my perspective, I feel like we're doing a good job.
All right. Well,
You are indeed.
there we go. There's always hope. There's always honor. There's always respect. And there's always tomorrow. So
Amen.
enjoy today, right?
Exactly. Live in the
I'm learning.
moment.
I'm learning, everybody.
Wow.
All right. Catch you next week. Thank you for listening. Mr. Bob, we're praying for you. See you on the flip side.
All right.
Bye-bye.